We provide a working forum. Oh, sorry. Thank you for recording. We provide a working forum for the residents of Central Park to participate in creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. At our meetings, we facilitate the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engage in proactive problem prevention, and amicable problem solving. CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of our community. Our mission is the betterment of the city of Denver by providing a forum for the residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues. I'm sorry, this is the next slide. A network of communication, a means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole. And we promote public service, civil civic discourse, collective efficacy, and we're an all volunteer board of Central Park residents, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So thank you. The agenda for tonight, we always have, it's 2 hours. Folks can stay for as long or as briefly as they'd like. The first hour is our community hour, doing the welcome and agenda overview. Then we'll have committee updates from all of our CPUN committees so that folks know what sort of what we're working on and how they can get involved. And we also have a couple of other announcements for that. And then following that, we have a number of updates from community partners. Typically in our meetings, we actually have representatives from different organizations and offices speaking, but just since we have a pretty packed agenda tonight, I asked for 1 or 2 items on slides, and I'll do the community partner updates on the slides. Then we'll have guest speakers. We'll have 3 guest speakers talking about the new immigrant arrivals in Denver and in our neighborhood, just kind of the neighborhood response in particular. And then we also will have, following that, there is actually a part of the schedule that's community comment, which is anybody can sign up to speak. And tonight we'll actually have Doris Dempsey, who serves on the sidewalk Ordinance 307 implementation committee, will be talking to us about her work on that committee, about the ordinance and the opportunity to give public feedback. We'll have a brief break and then start our board hour. It is open to the public, but we'll be talking about some things specific, just kind of internal work with the board. We'll have the treasurer's report. We have 4 budget requests to discuss and vote on tonight. And we are in board season. So we'll be talking about that process, what that will look like. If anybody who's not been involved before but is interested in learning more, that actually will be, I think, a good conversation to stay on for. And then we'll also be talking about outreach needs and opportunities to end our meeting. So, okay, next slide, Amanda. All right, so committee updates. We'll start with Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Mandel's here in person.
Good evening. So an update for the DEI committee. We are in the process of planning for an upcoming training for the board for DEI training. So we're kind of looking at a few different individuals for that. We're also talking in discussions about a book reading that we would have a discussion on later on that would be open to the community. And so we're actually open to some suggestions. If you do have suggestions and you have our contact information, you can reach out. If you don't have our contact information, you can go to the website, and on the website you can sign up, and there is a comment section there. When you sign up, you can put your information there or your questions or suggestions there as well. Let's see, just to let you know that we meet the 4th Tuesday of every odd month, and so we will be meeting the 19th of March.
The 26th.
Oh, is it the 26th?
Yeah, the 3rd week is the 19th.
Oh, I must have looked at that wrong. Thank you. The 26th of March. And so we meet at 6 p.m. online. So if you are interested, again, sign up on, get your information and we'll contact you there.
Is it a book club? Book reading?
It's not a book club. There was some discussion about it would be sort of like a book club, but this is a reading that we want to do and just open up to the community so that we could have a discussion. So it's not something that we do on a regular basis, but this was something that came up in one of our meetings.
Yeah, it was an idea of like a community. So that there's a book that we choose short. A book or an article or an article. It doesn't have to be particularly
Right.
long. On some topic, and just so that it's not just events, but it's a way of engaging other folks who might be. All right, any questions? Amanda or Carol, you can.
Right. Hi, it's Carol.
Education Committee.
Thank you. Both of us are going to speak about this. We're surveying the Education Committee as to changing our day and time for meeting. We've sent out, Amanda created a little survey and we've sent that out today about possibly changing in order to engage more folks and to make it easier for the existing members. We are also going to go more deeply with education questions that came out of the 2023 survey. We're going to assess and that'll help us assess and plan our goals. And then it's my understanding that Ashley Elementary still needs volunteers in various capacities, whether it's doing a read aloud with the students or whether it's just being physically present on the campus. Brian Weber from the foundation has been their volunteer coordinator. I don't know if Brian is on this meeting or not. Brian, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, do you want to add anything in terms of, very briefly, in terms of Ashley's needs at this point?
Well, they've got about 7 or 8 tutors now doing basically literacy work. The principal, Janet Estrada, right now would like to kind of keep it that way, but she wants to see how things go and she's really busy on budget and hiring, so she just can't quite deal with all of it. But in the next month or so, I think that'll change. Some volunteers from Northfield High School, the students are going to help with a 2 or 3 day reorganization of the library we're going to do with the DPS library department. And Janet is the interim principal. She's applying to be the permanent principal. She has a lot of support within the school with the parents, but they have 10 applicants, and I think within a matter of about a month, they'll be making a decision on a permanent principal.
Thanks, Brian. Amanda?
I'll add that Carol and I met with Russell Ramsey, who's the new Executive Director of Enrollment and Campus Planning with Denver Public Schools. So in these meetings, we've had Liz Mendez, we've had Jim Carpenter. So he's in that role with DPS. So a couple of things that we talked about were that he sees the stipulations for Northfield High School being that everyone who lives in this community who wants to attend may, and 35% of the seats will be set aside for students from adjacent boundaries as an either or, as opposed to a both and, which is how it had historically been and was originally. And so it seems that there might be a plan afoot to do away with with that capacity element to allow for school choice for people to come into Northfield High School from adjacent boundaries. And that, there were board policies that laid that out from the very beginning. So that could be something that the community wants to share opinions with DPS about. We also just looked at elementary and high school are sort of one animal, and then middle school is different because of the different boundary and the shifting enrollment that's leading to layoffs. Anyway, so it was a productive conversation. We're establishing a new relationship with a new employee at DPS, and we're looking forward to having him come and speak to us. And this actually will want to touch base with you about when might be a good meeting on a Tuesday for that, because he can speak to the benefits of the school choice model and how that can just be helpful for a system as a whole.
Yeah, we've got some of those in the upcoming meetings, so
Right.
so we can have further.
All right. Thanks.
So, okay, anything else from education?
That's it.
No,
Okay, great. Health and safety are Sandra and Jeff.
hello.
Is
Uh,
Jeff on the call?
I don't know if he is, Sandra. I don't think he is.
Oh, okay. The health and safety, we've lost so many members that we are actually barely a committee right now. So we're trying to figure out how to recruit more people into the health and safety so that we can get it back up and running.
Okay. All right. We'll just keep us posted on that.
Okay.
Thank you. We can move on to the Safe Streets Committee.
Yes, 2 points. The committee is connecting with Councilwoman Chantel Lewis to discuss points of collaboration between the two entities. And the committee's waiting for feedback from Dottie about areas of concern. Amy Campbell, co-chair of the committee, put together a list of areas of concern, and it's quite lengthy in terms of safe streets in Central Park. And we sent it in, and we're interested in learning about how the anticipated budget cuts are going to affect Dottie projects in Central Park. So those are two of the most prominent items that we have in front of us.
Any questions? Let's see, sustainability. Do you have any update, Mark?
No updates this month.
Thanks. And then I was going to give Matt a couple of minutes for the Central Park Business Association.
Oh, thanks. I won't take that long. Excuse me. I just wanted to say hello. I'm on the board of the Central Park Business Association as well. And wanted to just let everybody know that the CPBA is an education, networking, and fundraising organization and has been a part of the greater Central Park neighborhood since 2006, bringing business owners and entrepreneurs together. The CPBA supports, sponsors, and promotes the local business community. The CPBA co-hosts the Central Park Mini Golf Classic, which will be held May 19th at Flight Code Tower. This is the second year of this amazing event and promises to be the best ever. We also work, the CPBA and CPUN, on the Welcome Bags program. You can meet the CPBA over breakfast, lunch, or happy hour and find out what's happening around the neighborhood. You can find out more, and I'll put it in the chat at centralparkbusiness.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I just had one, it's a pretty small, I don't have very much information to share, but I'm serving on the Good Neighbor Agreement Committee for the Quebec Street Corridor motel shelters that have just started up. And so this is being convened with a mediator, Steve Charbonneau, as the city's mediator, between the Salvation Army, which is the shelter operator, and residents in Central Park and Park Hill, in the areas adjacent to that corridor and the motels. We had our initial meeting, which was mostly introductions and just meeting logistics. So I don't really have very much to report. We have another meeting this Thursday. And so I'll be sending periodic updates through our community update emails, or if timing works during meetings like this during the month. But just wanted to make folks aware of that. We will be asking for community feedback on different aspects of the Good Neighbor Agreement. So just stay tuned and I'll get that information out as it comes. Okay, Amanda, next slide. And then, so now we'll run through, I have a few slides of community partner updates, and we'll run through those as quickly as possible. So for City Council District 8, also for anybody in person, the District 8 aide, Jesse, is here. So afterwards, if you have questions. But crimes, they're working on crime statistics in Central Park, reviewing data and coordinating with DPD District 2, which is more the East Colfax and Park Hill area, and District 5, which is Central Park and Woodville. Property tax assessments, has everybody gotten their statements from the assessor's office? So there's increases in assessed value and increase in property taxes for single family residential homes. I'll throw these links in the chat. There is, for folks who are facing a hardship, there's state level property tax deferrals. And there's also a city level program on property tax rebates for qualifying homeowners. And so I'll put the links in the chat, and also we'll share them out in the next community updates, but you can learn more about those programs. I would have more to say, but we got to move on the agenda. There's also, I'm sure folks have seen the news about the city budget cuts for the budget shortfall. Councilwoman Lewis is coordinating with city agencies. They're coordinating between city agencies and the city council office. And just that I have this message. Councilwoman Lewis is opposing the proposed budget cuts on the grounds that these specific cuts will disproportionately impact communities that have historically suffered from disinvestment in city resources and infrastructure. Their office is working alongside other city council offices, the Department of Finance, and the Office of Social Equity and Innovation to determine how these suggested cuts were identified and how they may be able to find alternative sources to address the budget shortfall. The goal is to determine what equity criteria, framework, and/or tools are being used to evaluate and determine priorities for budget cuts. Additionally, the District 8 office is working with the administration to ensure there are objective measures in place to determine how consider things such as historical disinvestment and how our city resources serve as protective factors for communities, such as the importance of recreation and central access. So again, we can, we'll, I suppose, have more information in next month's meeting, I think, on how that is going, and also when the community partner updates are, the representatives themselves. One way to learn more about this also is to stay in touch with the District 8 office to sign up for the weekly emails. I think they're twice weekly. One is a message from the office and the other is events. Then there's also going to be monthly community meetings to be announced that the council will be having in each of the neighborhoods in the district. If you have questions, you can email district8@denvergov.org or call 720-337-8888. Next slide, Amanda. So the DPD update, sorry, as out of the crime synopsis, Lieutenant Hines sent this over. So precinct 511 is the part of the neighborhood that's north of I-70. He reports as of last week, total crime is down 3.7% for the past 28 days in that precinct. Violent crime accounts for 10.9% of the total crime they're seeing. Larceny, which is, and mostly shoplifting within that category. Theft from motor vehicles and auto theft are the leading drivers of crime. His report for precinct 512, which is for those who live south of I-70, total crime is down 7% for the past 28 days. Violent crime accounts for 12.2% of total crime. Again, larceny, mostly shoplifting, auto theft, and theft from motor vehicles are the leading drivers of crime in that precinct. There's the upcoming events. The commanders meeting is this Thursday on the 21st. From, let's see, that's tomorrow.
That's March.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Sorry, Thursday, March 21st. So I guess the next commanders meeting is in March at 6 p.m. And then this is like way looking ahead. There's a drug take back event, which is it refers to the safe disposal of unused or expired drugs. That'll be Saturday, April 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the District 5 office, which is 12025 East 4th Ave. Next slide. And then, so the Master Community Association is the Property Owners Association in Central Park. The annual Egg Scramble is Saturday, March 23rd, 10 a.m. to 12 noon at Runway 35 Pool, which is 8863 East 47th Ave. You can go to mca80238.com for more information and the event calendar. And then, let's see. The swim team registration opens up in April. So for returning swimmers, Monday, April 8th, new swimmers, Wednesday, April 10th. Go to the MCA's website for the swim teams. And then for, you know, as we get into the warmer weather, pool rental and reservations open on Wednesday, May 1st. And then the Sam Gary Branch Library, they have two events they wanted us to share. There's a movie screening and discussion of a Zombian movie called I Am Not a Witch. It's tomorrow afternoon or early evening, 5:30 p.m. So it's a 2017 Zombian film about a child accused of witchcraft who is sent to a detention camp for witches. And this takes place now. It's not a past, it's not a historical film. And it's inspired by actual stories of witchcraft accusations in Zambia. They also asked us to share that the Idea Lab, which is the maker space at Sam Gary, is having a meetup. It's called a Raspberry Jam for teens on Thursday, March 14th from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a meetup for anyone interested in exploring what you can do with a Raspberry Pi computer, which is about, it refers to physical computing and involves interacting with the physical world in addition to just a screen. And it's also an opportunity for folks to meet with Sam Gary's staff and for teams to meet with the teen advisory board for the library. And then just also on the DPL, the Denver Public Library topic, since it's also Black History Month this month. It's not on the slides, but I just wanted to encourage folks, if you haven't been to the Blair Caldwell African American Research Library on Welton Street, I really recommend going there. There's actually an art exhibit all month at the library on Denver's Black history. And it's just a good way to get out of the neighborhood and observe and celebrate Black History Month in Denver in the last week. So, okay, next slide. And then our friends at Bluff Lake Nature Center have registration. They have an after-school program, and registration is open for that program. It's elementary-aged kids, generally ages 5 to 12 on Mondays and Tuesdays from 2:45 to 4:30 p.m. And we just wanted to make a special note that after-school care is free for any students who apply that qualify for scholarship. And so we can throw that link also into the chat, and we'll also share it in the email update. But the same goes for the spring break mini camp, since that's coming up at the end of March. Registration is open for that. It's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And they also have scholarships available using the same application for families that qualify. They also wanted to let us know that they now have an events calendar. They have all the events on their Facebook page or online on the link, if you can throw that in the chat too, Amanda. Excuse me?
Google Doc?
Yes, it is. It's a PDF of the calendar. But there are just a lot of new free nature events at Bluff Lake, and it includes a regular Spanish-speaking nature walk. All right. Next slide. We're done with community partner updates. So we'll move on to our guest speakers. Joining us tonight, we have Lillian Patil, is with the Facebook group that is Central Park and Park Hill Newcomer Migrant Support. And we also have Dana Miller. So Lillian's over there in person. Dana Miller is kind of a community activist who's been working with families on finding housing and other resources. And we also have Jessica Zender, is an aide with council member in the at-large city council office. And so I will turn this over to them. I think Jessica, you'll be talking first. We'll move to Lillian and then Dana, and also just kind of have a free flowing conversation and question and answer as folks have them. I'll be looking at the chat in the Zoom also to pull out any questions that folks might have. But folks who are in the room, we have a number of folks in person, so feel free to just be in conversation with one another and ask questions. So Jessica, I'll let you take it away. I know you had slides.
She said she sent them to you to send.
Oh, I forwarded them to you. So hold on just a second.
Oh, is that the forwarded message? Yes, okay, I see it.
Do you have it?
Yep, I'm just gonna stop sharing.
Guys, for having me. I'm sorry the council member couldn't be here. They had to move city council to Tuesday night since yesterday. It's holiday. So I'm Jessica and I am the senior aide for outreach with Councilmember Parody's office. And I'll just give you kind of a quick update. The slides will come up. They're not that exciting, so we can go through them. Updates on Denver's newcomers. There you go. I'll go through these pretty fast, so who are our new neighbors who are coming in? I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of information in the media. Approximately 38,000 newcomers have been served in Denver over the past 14 months. Most of those newcomers have arrived from our southern border. Many are asylum seekers. They're fleeing violence and persecution. The governor of Texas has been putting arriving migrants on buses. There were 144 buses that arrived in Denver in December alone. That has slowed down recently. You know, this is they're not coordinating, they're not communicating with the places that they're sending. I think Chicago and New York are other cities that have received quite a few. Most of these newcomers don't have work authorization. And I think it's really important to know that most cities are capable of supporting our incoming new neighbors, but coordination and support from the federal government is really key in being able to do that. And this is something I want to talk about. With the language, we hear migrant crisis a lot. And what we are seeing right now is actually the fruits of a decades-long campaign to dismantle federal immigration system. There's a reason why it feels very chaotic, and that's because it is. And I think most of us know that we've also seen an influx of Ukrainian refugees, but we don't see Ukrainian refugees, you know, sleeping outside because the federal government has given them work authorization as soon as they came in. We know where folks are coming in, they're being processed, they're being supported. That is not what's happening with our neighbors from the South. The federal government has the ultimate authority and power to address this issue. There is not a ton that cities can do, except try to house and feed people. And so I will talk a little bit about what Denver has been doing. So in Denver, we have a really strong mayor system. City council can make and change existing laws and approve the budget. That's what their official role is. So a lot of what's happening right now in the response to our new neighbors has fallen to the executive branch, which is the executive mayor's administration. Oh, you can? Okay, okay. So what has the mayor's response been? The mayor has, I mean, probably saw, there he is in the paper. He went to Washington, D.C. He has asked the federal government to speed up work authorization and make changes to the asylum process. That's not something that people should expect to happen soon, I would say. The federal government is very dysfunctional. And so I don't think that that's something that we'll probably see. He has created a new position, Sarah Plastino, the head of the newcomer program in Denver DHS. She just started this week. I do not envy her day or what her inbox looks like. So her job is going to be to coordinate with community groups. And as you hear, a lot of the slack in this response is being picked up by volunteers. And I will say, honestly, by the unpaid labor of a lot of women in our city, and a lot of women in our city who have really stepped up to help care for our new neighbors. And again, the mayor's admin has also asked for more assistance from the state and neighboring cities. Well,
I think there's somebody who needs to make themselves. I just will say that.
Can I ask a question? On the work authorization, without that, they're not eligible to be employed by anybody in the city?
Well, so there is a law professor who believes that the city could in fact actually employ them. And that is something that some organizations are asking the city to do. I know that Council Member Parity has talked to the mayor about that may be a way around it, that the city may be able to employ them. They could be challenged, they could be sued on that, but I don't think at this point the Biden administration would be interested in that at this point, but that may not be the administration in the year. So you can go forward 2 slides. The mayor has asked for surrounding cities and the state to step up a little more with funds. That has not really been received favorably. We have received, I saw this headline this morning, so I just had to put it in there. Yeah, and I don't know if, again, folks have followed. There was a recent city council meeting in Lakewood because a rumor was started that they were gonna send folks to Lakewood, and it turned into a really ugly community meeting based on that. So the next slide just gives this was today's update from the mayor's office, just about how, just how many folks are here as of today, how many folks are in shelter, how much the mayor has estimated that the city has spent. I know that also that number of 180 million has been thrown around, if that's how much it would cost at this current level. Those are estimates. Those really feel like back of a napkin kind of estimates. We don't know what that's actually going to look like. And I think some of the budget cuts are, they're trying to anticipate, again, it being at this level, sustaining this level. And I don't know what that's going to look like. So city council has pretty limited authority, but this is kind of what we're able to do. We are pushing our federal delegation for increased support, including more funding. We donated from our office about $100,000 of the office's budget to organizations that are serving migrants right now. As much as we're able to, acting as a resource navigator for nonprofits and community orgs, reaching out to folks we know work for ART, who work for RTD, to see if we can get vouchers for our volunteers and our community groups. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, there's a link in here and I encourage you to sign up. Ours is not twice a week, it's about every 6 weeks. So do not expect that frequency. But on that, we're encouraging folks to donate, volunteer, as much as we're able to coordinate and streamline information. and arranging trainings, town halls, and other forums. And if you'll go one more, our most recent one upcoming is about human trafficking. The Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking is offering a free training. Obviously, folks who are coming in and who are not given work authorization are very vulnerable to being exploited because folks have to work. And so the laboratory is going to give us an overview of what that looks like, how to identify it, and kind of what to do in response. So there's a link and I'll send all this out. You know, the other things that I've put in there are links to if you're interested in donating, if you're interested in volunteering. There's some dates for work authorization clinics for the few folks who are able to work. We're putting together some clinics so attorneys can help them get authorization. So, and all of that stuff is in there that I can share.
We're asking city employees as well to volunteer to, especially if you're bilingual, to help
Exactly.
facilitate those.
Yeah, yeah. Because that is, I mean, that there's only so much that folks can do if they're not able to work. You know, so.
So when you talk about the donations, are there organizations that are nonprofit organizations that the money is being funneled through?
Yep. So the newcomer fund is the main way that we are getting money and then giving it to organizations that are doing direct services in the city. I know a lot of other folks are doing just mutual aid, direct donations to people that are in need. If that's more your speed, I'm sure some of our community advocates can talk about that. But yeah, if you donate to the Newcomers Fund, that is through the Rose Foundation, and then they're distributing the money to a handful of organizations. The city is also contracting with some nonprofits also that are doing direct services and case managing our police. Really, I mean, a lot of this is, and then the last slide has my contact, and I have my cards here, and I'll wait till the end and I'll be here available for questions.
And then I think, Lillian, you're up. Gonna talk about like what you're seeing, through the work of just the organizing that's happening with the group.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lillian Patil. Sorry for those on Zoom. I'm in an awkward space to be talking. But I am one of 5 admin on the Facebook group it's now called the Central Park and Park Hill Newcomer/Migrant Organizing Support. And we are a very, very grassroots Facebook organization that has evolved since like mid-October-ish in conjunction with several other sister Facebook groups across the city. The one that was in the Highlands was the start of it all. And then they branched out into several different sister groups, of which we are one. And our goal is to just have an online space where we can convene local community members and then newcomers, most of whom are migrants, who join the group, and we can connect people to people and people to resources on that group in a very mutual aid emergency response. A lot of like filling in the gaps where folks aren't receiving or aren't yet receiving city services, or need some direct resource help or resource navigation help or advice. And so our Facebook group is extremely active. There are dozens of posts each day. Some of them are posts by community members who want to offer like, oh, I heard that this nonprofit is having this legal clinic, or, oh, this nonprofit, Para Ti Mujer, is collecting donations and they need help sorting those donations. So opportunities to get involved and donate really pop up organically on the Facebook page. We also have started an effort to organize it in the last month or so. We've started a daily resource post, which is a big post with a block of color on it. And every day, if anyone tries the post, admin, we approve all the posts. And if anyone tries the post asking for a certain like specific resource help, like I need food for my kid because they're not able to eat what's in the shelter, or I need snow shovels so that I can try and go make some money shoveling people's walks. Or if you have resources that are specific to donate. So example, like I have a bunch of like size men's large clothing that I'd like to give, or like boots, which are always in demand, or what have you. We sort of redirect all those posts to this one thread. And so a really, I think, helpful and needed way to support and get involved right now, just at that very localized level, is to just follow those posts on a daily basis and check in once a day or twice a day and see what people are needing right now and connect directly to be able to get resources to those folks or offer resources that you might be able to have. We have been so grateful for and working with both like city-led and nonprofit organizations who have been collecting donations and done a lot of winter drives. We've done some distribution events in conjunction with them. And we primarily work, I forgot to say, sorry, we primarily work to serve folks who are staying at the city-run shelter, the Comfort Inn off of Peoria and I-70. And so we've been working with nonprofits around there, but we've been hearing lately that a lot of them are inundated with clothes and don't have enough people to help sort through and organize those clothes. So I believe on the like city newcomers website, and then also I have some links that I think I sent out a couple months ago, but would be happy to like recirculate if that's helpful.
I'm happy to just throw them into the chat.
Awesome. It's amazing. There are just like a lot of lists of those nonprofits that really need that help sorting. Winter clothes seem to still be in high demand. Boots always, especially men's boots, coats always. But not so much like we're not seeing as many people needing just like basic clothing on a day-to-day basis. I think a little bit because like the as you were saying, like the pace of arrivals has slowed down a little bit recently. One other sort of new emergence that's happened is that the city has restarted for a while, for a couple of months in those big coldest months in December and January. The city was not making anyone leave the shelter after their allotted, I think, 42 days that families have. And only 15 days for single adults. But they have restarted that policy now because the city's totally financially tapped. People were staying like 14, 15 people to a hotel room. It was untenable for all, which we understand. And it's also untenable to have a situation where there are children sleeping on the streets. And I think everyone also understands that. But because there's a city dashboard and it does show that there are people being basically evicted from these city-run shelters every single week. And so families are desperately trying to do odd jobs to make enough money to be able to move into apartments. And we are seeing on the page that that's happening at a like, I think, higher and higher frequency. But the really tricky thing is because no one can get work authorization, that they're depending on these very one-off odd jobs to be able to try and make rent. And then of course, once you're locked into a lease, eviction looms if you can't make rent. And so I think something we're seeing right now on that Facebook group, and another really important and helpful way to be involved is to, if you have any way to help with resource navigation to either help families find apartments and places that where landlords might be willing to waive any deposit fees or anything like that, and be flexible with arrangements, or like hiring any of these newcomers to do odd jobs for you or people in your community, your neighbors, everything from snow shoveling on snowy days to detailing, washing cars. There are a lot of folks who are selling different types of foods, which are all delicious and wonderful. Some of these folks have, some of these newcomers have started selling their goods and offering services in a sort of donations-based way at weekly pop-ups at Stanley Marketplace. Some of you may have seen them. It's a pop-up called Finding Their Way, and they're there every Tuesday. So they were there today from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so if you're like very new to this space and kind of want to get involved but don't know where to start, that could be a great, like very low barrier way to just head over there, talk to some folks. Everyone's really friendly. Everyone, if they don't speak English, is really familiar with using Google Translate, and just kind of like start getting to know people. And often from there, it sort of just like evolves into different ways you can help and make relationships and connections. So I've just said a lot of words about sort of what we're seeing recently. We're all very worried about what's happening as families are having to leave shelters. I think we expected to see a higher demand for like camping items, like tents and heaters. I think there is some tension there because legally newcomers are also not, like, camping is not allowed on streets. And so that is difficult. And we have not seen the like people asking as much for tents and things as much, which is, I guess, good, but also worrisome because then we don't know where folks are going. So I think just, you know, we have been advocating for the city to do everything they can. We appreciate both of the offices and the council members who are represented here today. They've been really strong advocates for making sure city services are as robust as possible. We are also trying to get all the people in the Facebook group and anyone we can talk to as involved as possible in advocating at the state and federal level, because as was said before, the work authorization problem is really like the bottleneck that's really just causing all these disastrous ripple effects and sort of keeping people so entrenched in poverty and inability to really get on their feet. And so like any calling of your senators and representative is super impactful. I used to work in government at both the state and the local level, and I know that like constituent calls can sometimes feel not impactful because they just say like, thanks, I'll pass along your message. But like your message gets tallied, the messages get across, the legislative directors, they do really look at what people are calling in about. And so any calls there and at the state level, we too would really like to see the governor and state legislators get more involved in making this a statewide solution and statewide coordination with other cities and counties, because again, we know Denver is just so very, very stretched. So lots of ways to sort of leverage whatever capacity you may have, whatever interests and connections, relationships you may have. If you want to help but have no idea how to get involved, feel free to join the Facebook group and then just message me or one of the other admin. And we're always happy to help sort of people navigate what is often an overwhelming Facebook page and help people figure out like where it makes sense for them to get involved. I think we're at like 4,500 members now. So there's a lot of folks there. It's an awesome community. And it's been really beautiful to see the community response and see how everyone has like really come out in support of our newcomers who I think are making our city a better place, and just we will all keep working at it.
What's the name of the group again, the Facebook group?
It is called the Central Park and Park Hill. Sorry, we changed the name recently to align better with the use of the word newcomers instead of migrant that the city has been turning towards. So it's called Central Park and Park Hill Newcomer (parentheses) Migrant Support.
And I will say too, just if anyone has any connections with other civic organizations or faith groups or places that have, you know, space where you can use as a staging area for donations or even as shelters overnight, like we had a church reach out to us and we were able to get the fire department out there so they could do some code stuff and make it so that people could sleep there at night when it was really cold. You know, the city will work with your organization.
Especially on the church thing, I think they're like such wonderful community resources and have space. And there have been a couple of churches that have like really stepped up, like you're saying, but there also have been a lot of churches that haven't. And if any of you all have connections with a community of faith and would like to start those conversations, we'd be very interested in talking with you.
Thank you. Just for time, there is a question in the chat that I think is best for Jessica. So I'll let you know what the question is now. You can respond to it after Dana.
Okay.
So it just was, I'd like to better understand that the city has a breaking point in not being able to accept more families because of the financial strains. And so I think on that answer, I will move to Dana now just to talk about what I guess like you kind of been in the nitty gritty of like really kind of trying to work with folks to find housing and some, you know, it's complicated, doable, and so there you go.
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone here for caring, and also the immense amount of people who've shown up on those Facebook pages. It is mutual aid on steroids. It is something for documentaries to be made out of and books to be written about. It's the most inspiring thing I've ever been involved in. I also wanted to mention a website that if people want to know what to do, where to donate, all that kind of stuff, there is a good website called denvermigranthelp.com. And you can see a lot of these, where to donate, how to support a family, all of these different things on one website that I think some of the Highlands people put together. Beautifully done. denvermigranthelp.com. You'll find it's kind of a one-stop shop.
I put it in the chat.
Great, great. Okay, just wanted to talk a little bit about the challenge and the opportunity for finding housing for these folks. It's quite, like Liz said, quite complicated because you're not going to be able to do background checks or criminal checks, credit checks on these folks, and they so landlords all across the city, both private landlords and also apartment complex landlords have gotten to be really creative and really willing to do things a little bit differently so we can get folks in housing. Just one of the things I do want to mention, but there's a lot of misunderstanding about how many people can live in an apartment. And so there is the group living ordinance that city council passed 2 or 3 years ago that now says no more than 5 unrelated people can live together, but a family can identify as a family, and there's no maximum to the amount of people that that family can be, unless the particular complex or something has some like health issues or some kind of issues around having quite a few people. But the group living ordinance does say that family members can live together. And also there is, people keep thinking that there's a 2-person per bedroom limit, and in the zoning code, there is nothing like that. So we can get creative in how we house people. And so I would encourage any of you that maybe have an apartment or a basement or a house or anything like that to really think about how you might serve, and not necessarily to sign a lease to have a family live there for like the next year or so, but say, I have a basement and it's going to be open for the next month or so. And we've got people coming out of shelters that could really perhaps take that month to feel safe and secure somewhere, to be able to figure out their next steps. So all ideas are out there in terms of, in terms of helping get housing for people. And it's like Lillian said, since people will be exiting from the shelters for the next month and a half till the end of March, I think. Maybe depends on how long it takes and how many people come in. Yeah. So this isn't going to be an issue that's going on all the time. So it's something that we really have the opportunity to come together on and be creative with. And I just want to say, and I usually cry when I say this, but this has been the most terrifying and the most wonderful thing I've ever been involved with, and I would not change it for the world. These people are really, okay. I would like to just ask real quick, maybe for somebody to take a minute or two. Have you had an experience? Are you working with family and or individuals, and what is your experience been?
We had some other families in the neighborhood. And asking to shovel our sidewalks, and we've been with several family groups through this encounter and have been helping them over the past year get settled. And I think everything that you're saying about the barriers to housing, miraculously, they have been able to find kind of odd jobs to sustain them financially, but because they're not able to get bank accounts, it's extremely difficult for them to just pay their rent on a monthly basis, because the landlords, want you to pay online with a credit card, and they can't. So even just something as simple as paying, they have the money, but just paying the rent has become like a huge obstacle. And so there are so many little things that I think that we don't even think about as being, barrier in starting on the journey here. But yeah, I just wanted to second, just have made some amazing relationships with these people, and hearing their stories, and it's been so wonderful. But yeah, really, I think the other thing I really appreciate hearing about some of these, like the Denver Migrant Help and the Facebook. I'm not on Facebook.
I wasn't either. All my details were like 10 years out.
Yeah, but it's to know about kind of pulling all together, because we've been contacting like individual organizations, and I think that they are all so overwhelmed that it's very difficult to kind of get a response and get some help.
Hi, this is Victor.
And that's one thing that's really interesting is just how much you learn about bank accounts, about immigration, about what's temporary protected status, what is a work permit, what is actually applying for asylum really mean? I mean, I knew nothing about this stuff. And to me, it's been an incredible journey and just in learning about how it all works and what drive people to come. It's very rewarding.
Hi, is the mic open?
Got somebody on the Zoom?
Yeah, somebody's.
Okay. Somebody have a
Oh, hi.
question?
No, I was just going to say I'm a resident here in Central Park, and we also, like many of you, have been helping the migrants. And I want to thank everybody for the work that everyone is doing. And I will echo the same facts that everyone else has said. The migrant families that we've been helping, unfortunately, a lot of them have lost their identification, and they can't even receive or send money even to their families or receive money through Western Union. So it is a challenge. And the one thing I tell a lot of people are, I know it's hard, but if you next time you go grocery shopping, just buy a $10 gift card and just hand it to someone. That goes a long way. And it's also some good chicken soup for the soul if you can't, adopt an entire family. So thank you.
I wanted to just kind of add on to what you said, that I think that for a lot of folks, the way we encounter, this crisis is on street corners or in parking lots, or somebody knocking on your door to shovel. I mean, and something that I've done this for when I started working with people experiencing homelessness. Like I just started having cash, just having cash and having hand warmers or bottles of water, so that your interaction with someone is humane. I think that part of it also is like a lot of people can be very uncomfortable to be confronted with poverty. And so just kind of thinking ahead and having a human interaction, I think, and just kind of, it's like a little, I don't know, it's a way of, I don't know, just keeping the humanity, as we see, what is basically an emergency, throughout the city. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
All those little interactions bind us together. Right. And in answering that question, is there a breaking point? I mean, every budget anyone makes, you're always prioritizing one thing over another. That's always how it's going to be. And what we are seeing is people in life-threatening emergency situations, and that often is going to rise above things like planting flowers in the park, as much as we all love that. But we also will have to make fewer of those choices. If the more people, the more cities, the more the state is stepping up, and if and when the federal government also interacts. So I don't get to make those decisions about the budget. And again, that goes through the mayor's administration, but I feel pretty confident saying that's how the council would.
I just think it's important too, then I love that you're here and giving us at Christmas time, everybody had the Christmas spirit and just even able to take more. Now we're in February, beginning March, and everybody's back to their real life. And I think it's time to step up and remind everyone that the situation has not gone away. And we need to continue our holiday spirit of giving and whatever. And I know a lot of people are doing it in ways, and just not through your Facebook group, but like in the neighborhood, people have said, we need people that need mixing bowls, or can you, little things. And if we just all can maintain that, but I think people also get a little weary or feeling overloaded, and just, it's good to know that that's out there and it's important. that there is support.
Take a break.
Yeah.
We can take breaks.
And everybody who is working on it, if you haven't already, you should look up compassion fatigue and what kind of the symptoms of that is and how you can kind of work within and without that. So, yeah.
Would it help, because you talked about sharing this difficulty with other cities other than Denver? Would it help calling the government? I mean, do we need like a mass call in, and just say to the governor, would you help, to get other cities on board? Would that help?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I think people are doing that and they just need to do it.
I think, yeah, I think yes.
But I think you bring up a really good point that I think en masse calling, like if we've done this a couple of times on the Facebook group, we're like, everyone call today, because it makes a difference. I think if you're a staff in the office and you're getting 20 calls about something versus 1 per day. And so I think, any communities and networks that you all have, even getting like 10 friends together to all call the same person on the same day, I think is hugely impactful.
Because I do think it's being framed as a Denver issue right now. And yeah, and that's just not how people work. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for speaking. Thank you all for the work that you're doing in the community. We're past the time on the agenda, as usual. So I will kind of stop, we'll stop there, but we'll just continue sharing information out. I know there's a woman, Amy Beck, who has been working on this and is actually working on kind of unified calls to action at multiple levels of government. And so I spoke with her today just to see if there was anything we could share out tonight. She said it's not quite ready, but there will probably be like calling campaigns or other forms of action. And so if folks are interested, we're basically kind of a clearinghouse for community information. So if folks are interested, we will just kind of let you know what else we want. So thank you very much. If we want to go back to the slide deck, Amanda, we have a look ahead for next month. Our guest speaker slot will be having, last fall, we had a development update from Brookfield Properties, which is the master developer for the community. There's just a lot. I mean, we're kind of nearing the build out of Central Park. And so there are a number of projects coming online. And so we'll be getting basically a part 2 update from Kelly from Brookfield. So folks are welcome to join us for that, to just kind of learn about what's coming into the community. And then next, and just to let folks know, we actually do have on the agenda, there's a community comment portion. And so folks can come and talk to us about any topic that they'd like to, would like us to be aware of. Generally, it's just, 2 or 3 minutes. And so, but I did, since we have it's kind of time sensitive, we're in a public feedback kind of period for the sidewalk ordinance. Doris had reached out with some thoughts about it. I invited her to speak during the community comment portion. So I think that we'll have Doris speak, and then we'll skip the break if that's okay, move into the board hour. And then I think the big things are to get through the budget request conversations and votes, and then start talking about board recruitment and outreach needs. But just folks are welcome to join us. Doris, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Doris Dempsey and I've lived out here for 18 years. And so I joined the Ordinance 307 Sidewalk Ordinance Stakeholder Committee. And you can't just join, you had to apply, and then they chose people. There are about 26 of us. And this is very impactful on everybody sitting in this room and everybody who lives in Denver. Whether you're a business, a church, a school, whatever. We're all going to be impacted by this. And now it's at the urgent stage. So I'm going to follow Liz's plan and go through this information as quickly as I can. But the first thing I would urge everybody to do is to download a copy of the 307 ordinance so that you actually know what's happening. It is a lot broader in scope than people understand. So I also want to give you some figures from the Colorado Secretary of State's office. In that election, 437,426 people voted, Denverites. Of those, 150,816 voted yes for 307. 119,237 voted no. 167,373 people didn't vote. So that left the yes votes were 34.5%, but the ordinance committee says that they got 55% of the vote. Either way, it passed. And so we're under the gun right here because they're going to present to the city council on March 4th. And they're asking for the billing to start on March 4th for everybody. And that was supposed to happen in July. So now it could happen next month. So all of us would be receiving the bill. So what will 307 currently do? So what 307 did, it changed responsibility for sidewalks from the property owner to the city. But in doing so, you'd have to be have been charged a fee, which you're going to be, everyone is going to get a fee, including renters, through the property owners. So 3307 is supposed to construct, and this is directly, these are words directly from the ordinances. We say, download a copy of the ordinance. Repair sidewalks, maintain, improve, renew, replace, and then reconstruction of sidewalks within the city, Now, the master plan, what they don't tell you, but first of all, let me back up a little bit. There is a public survey that's out right now at denvergov.org/sidewalks. And the committee and is asking you for your input. But it's only input on 3 changes. And what people don't understand is that all the rest of the ordinance is the same. And that's the rub that I'm going to tell you about. So the sidewalk master plan can require sidewalks to be constructed, reconstructed, and repaired to the minimum standard sidewalk width. And that width came up in the Complete Streets guidelines. And you can look that up too. I downloaded it, read the whole thing about in 2019. And what it says is that every sidewalk needs to be 5 feet in width. Now, guys, we have a brand new community, but not every sidewalk is 5 feet. But if this ordinance passes with that in there, then the city will be authorized legally to change every sidewalk. Guys, I have asked them to remove those 2 words, required and every. They will not do it. Every sidewalk in Denver to 5 feet. Now, how will they do that? If it's not 5 feet and your property is in the way, they will acquire the right of way to your property to move it. They will not be going into the streets because the pipes are in the street. So from the curb to the property line, they can require you to move your fence back. They can remove trees. They can remove landscaping, all legally. So that's the part that nobody knows. And also I've said, well, every street, guys, every street, every sidewalk, if I say street, just know I mean sidewalk. Every sidewalk in Denver doesn't need to be 5 feet. But they don't care about that. And if you've driven anywhere all over the city, there are just a lot of sidewalks that are not 5 feet. So the next part is what are the proposed changes in the survey? That survey just came out. Our last meeting was on February 14th. It came out on the 15th. You only have until February 27th. And so my question to the committee was then, how are we to get the word out to all of the people in Denver? There's 700,000 plus voters in Denver, but there are 900,000 people. And so what the chairperson said, who by the way, is the writer and creator of this ordinance. And when she was voted in as chairperson, that was not said. And so I didn't find out till later. I don't know if the rest of the people knew or not. So she has an invested interest. So of the proposed changes that you're going to see in that survey, and I hope you will take it, is that one of the things that the committee was able to do was to change this sweeping fee. Some homeowners would have paid $1,000 a year and more because it was per linear foot. And the cheapest per linear foot was $2.15. So we were able with much, I don't think, we were able to get that changed. So now there is a flat fee for all single residents, and that flat fee is $148.74. And I had asked for a cap of $100. That wasn't taken. Then there's a multi-family fee, and that would be $27.83. That's like an apartment. And so now, then you say, oh, well, that's good, and that is good because it came down. Nobody has to pay per linear foot. Now there's a flat fee, but it's not just, it's only those two categories. The businesses, the schools, the churches, everybody else has to pay per linear foot. So, and those figures are in the ordinance. And then the next thing that we got changed, the proposal was that the only people who could apply for, they call a rebate, it really means discount in that context, were nest families, nest neighborhoods, which means neighborhood equity and stabilization. So I brought up the fact, well, there are people all over the city of Denver who have budget issues. And so finally we rehashed that over and over and over again. And so the next change, which is in your survey, is that anyone can apply for a rebate. And the way you, and remember, rebate means discount in this context. So, and the way you do that is you use the same application process for the trash service. So when you get your trash bill, there's a little, some words on there that says, if you can't pay this bill, you can apply, you'll be able to use that. So that's good. The third change, these are the only three changes, is that the language revising the timeline for the implementation of this investment. So the timeline for the entire build out of the city sidewalks, 9 years. So the change was from the words within 9 years of the effective date. And then, so the change is to include or as soon thereafter as determined. Now that's determined by the manager of transportation and infrastructure. That is a problem in my opinion. And so that's the third change. So what's not changed? What's not changed is the per linear foot charges for all the other property owners. Huge costs for some people, some churches, some whatever. No flat fees, no nothing, every business. And that also was not changed, is that there's a street type. I don't think most people knew that there were street types. So let's say you lived on Central Park Boulevard or Monaco or Colorado. you're gonna pay more. And so it's commercial arterial, commercial collector, downtown arterial, and so forth and so on. And those are in the ordinance. And you're going to pay per linear foot by which street, which kind of street you're on. So the price goes from $2.15 to the highest is $4.30 per linear foot. Now, guys, we all know that 5,280 feet, right, is 1 mile. There's some schools that have miles and miles of sidewalks. Do you agree with that? And that's how they're going to pay, including Metro State, all of those schools. So that has not changed. Don't think that changed. Also required widening of every street according to the complete streets guidelines. Which is what? 5 feet for every sidewalk. There are just tons of sidewalks all over the city that are not 5 feet. And the point that I made is that you don't need 5 feet to be accessible. You don't. But then what we get the blank stare, guys. We just get the thank you. And the move on. So that right there is still there. And that gives, and remember I said that authorizes the city of Denver to legally acquire right of way of whatever in order to do that. So the next words that I asked to be taken out of is 307 is effective in perpetuity. Now guys, that's forever. That means that there can't be any changes. See what I'm saying? And so instead of just saying as long as it's needed, also it's disrespectful of the generations to come to have the same system. They can't change it. And so the words in perpetuity are still there. So just know that. The next thing that didn't change is that anybody who can't pay, there will be a lien on the property. And that lien, let me just read you the words. Continuing lien upon the real property so charged with fees, interest, the lien created hereby shall be superior and prior to all other liens, regardless of their dates of recordation, except liens for general taxes and special assessments. So anybody who can't pay, and there's some talk of lumping the two bills together, the sewage bill, we all get that. And then the sidewalk. So that would make it even less likely that somebody with budget issues could pay that particular bill. And so the next thing that Lisa asked me to tell you is who do you give the feedback to? If you do that survey, and I hope you do, it'll be asking you if you like those 3 changes that I told you about, right? And then at the end, you have one little opportunity to give comments. Whatever your comments, you don't have to agree with my comments. Whatever they are, you can put that in. And so that's going to be presented to the city council on March 4th. If they approve it, we're going. We're ready to go. So who will you give your feedback to? I think that you need to write every city council person. There are 2 city council persons sitting on this committee. One who disagreed with that because he called it too aggressive. We all know, guys, we need the sidewalks fixed. That's a given. It's just that the scope of this ordinance is so broad that even the Parks and Rec came to us with a PowerPoint to say, well, let's not dig up mature trees that on the side, on the park property. Let's not move grass. We can do something better. Because all of this is almost like it's on lockdown. You can also write the department, and you can email Dottie, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, and Jill Locantori. Jill Locantori is the executive director and the creator of this. And I think her email, I'll give it to you. And so my suggestions, what I've also been trying to do since August is have the Denver Public Schools exempt from this sidewalk. The Denver Public Schools has 207 schools. Have you seen the sweeping sidewalks? I mean, George Washington. So, well, we can just look it up, Paul Sandoval. At 207 schools, and the sidewalks will be charged by linear foot. So even if East High School, let's say, has 1 mile, you know how it goes all around, that's $5,000. They have 207 schools. And each one of those schools, the sidewalks around there will be charged per linear foot to the Denver Public Schools. Now, my thing is that I don't want the property taxes that we have. You know, the Denver Public Schools gets its money from our property taxes, right, guys? And I think that what we all will want is our property taxes to go for teachers, for classroom size, not concrete, you understand. And so I've been saying this since August, and just on February 14th, I was told, well, we'll get someone from the Denver Public Schools to come in to speak to the committee and see if this would be a hardship. Well, guys, well, it is a hardship. And I said, well, that's awesome. So at least that's a movement. But I don't care what they say, that I think that all parents, everybody just needs to say to the city council, let's just leave the Denver Public Schools out of this. They have 38 high schools. High schools have sweeping sidewalks. They have 16 middle schools. They have sweeping sidewalks, and then the rest of it. So the next thing, I feel like widening of the streets should be as necessary versus every street. As necessary, and maybe as requested by the communities. One thing out here, I was told, and I am advocating for the whole city, not just Central Park. I was told, well, it will be a long while, and that's true. And this was said out of kindness. All these people are kind, by the way. I'm probably making them sound like they're not kind. They are kind. They're kind, they just are like focused on what they want. And so I was told, well, it'll be a long time before we get to Central Park because Central Park is new. Well, the bottom line is we want them never to get to Central Park. And widen, every street. Maybe we need some widening of sidewalks, but every sidewalk in Central Park, we want that never to happen. Well, I want it never to happen. So, and then the language in perpetuity, I think that language needs to be deleted. We don't need anything that goes on and on and on. That also will preclude us from making any changes after the 5-year period. Because it's in perpetuity. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And we should have information about the survey and Amanda, you shared the links in the chat. All right, thank you very much, you all. Okay, we do have to move on to the board topics. So thank you for folks who joined us for the community hour. You're welcome to stay. Thanks, everybody. So please come back. Okay. And I'm just gonna run for a quick water break for folks, and then we can start. One thing
No, because only 3 changes.
Right, I think that for those of us board, we need to do a quick check because we're voting. So not just a second.
No.
Mark Merricker, if we're on
that point.
I don't know, that's kind of. Should be like city. Stiff on it, I just. So.
That's true, and actually.
No.
People need to mute themselves. Please mute yourself. So,
Which,
And then.
that was somebody who was sitting and he overpromised.
So do you know how many
Yeah.
people we need?
So I put us in line, and so I covered
Huh?
that bill. And
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Carol and Mark are online. And
recommendation, so I just paid him that. So there's-
and
Yes.
It's not, it wasn't stiff.
I didn't.
what?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Answer. Okay, we have a forum. Okay. All right.
Votes needed to reimburse you. And, you know,
All right. All right, so we will move into the board portion. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just,
Um,
it's,
sorry.
I was just doing that. I like suppressed my screen while, and I actually did respond. Seemed inappropriate to do it like. Here we go.
Yeah.
It's.
Here we are. Board items. So just keep going. Treasures, do you wanna?
Yeah, I'll just run quickly. So for the CPUN board, thank you for everybody who's here in person and everybody who could join us online or online. So we'll move into the treasurer's report. Brian was not able to be here for this month, so this is his numbers. Current reserve balance $6,379. The goal is to keep $5,000 in reserve. A 2023 summary of fundraising and expenses. $3,583 in fundraising. The Art of the Powwow somehow netted a positive 670. And then the bike racks netted a positive 37. We received a donation from the MCA of $3,000. And then our expenses last year, Nation Builder was $6,060. We did not renew for 2024. The website conversion did cost $4,458. Insurance, $761. Our INC membership, $30. Annual registration and miscellaneous fees, $75. And our share of the Welcome to Ed program is $1,000. Next slide, ongoing website costs, new website. Our new website launched and our costs decreased significantly in 2024. Our current estimate is about $2,200 annually. So that's web hosting at $60 a month, $720 annually. Domain $30 annually, and our MailChimp at the level we're at is $1,411.20. We do have some budget requests that cover some on the next slide, Amanda. We can move into the discussion of the budget requests that I emailed folks about ahead of time. Did everybody have a chance to read the narratives on the budget requests? So we'll kind of go through this. So the first one is pretty straightforward. It's reimbursing Mandel for an out-of-pocket expense where he covered the balance of the food costs for the Art of the Powwow that we had lost the funding for. And since we have a net gain of $670 from the fundraising for that event, I just wanted to put it forward to make sure that we get Mandel reimbursed for that. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, okay, so Amanda, made a motion, second? Second, all right. Does anybody have, I guess, like, is there any objection or no vote for that?
I think you can. Oh, never mind, go ahead.
Okay, what were you gonna say?
I feel like you can do it without explicitly asking for a no vote, but that might have been,
Oh, okay,
but it's fine.
all right.
I don't have.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat, and I'm not seeing anything in person that is saying no. So I think since we're hybrid voting, it's a little chaotic, but I think we can go with that. So, okay, that budget request is approved to reimburse Mandel. So Mandel, well, I'll follow up with Brian and CC. on that. So then the second budget request was just kind of an unforeseen expense on the MailChimp. In order to ensure deliverability, we need to make an authentication request for our front email address, just to make sure it's actually getting to folks, particularly with, I think, Gmail and Yahoo accounts. And so Mark, I don't know if you want to speak on this, but he estimated it's the one-time request is $100 to $250 for that expense.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot extra to add. The reason it's a range is because we don't know for sure exactly how long it's going to take to have the work done. And I'm not even 100% sure if it's necessary because we did some authentication stuff before, but all of the companies are changing their rules like right now. So that's why we have this unexpected expense.
All right, any questions for folks on it? Okay. Well then I make a motion to approve the one-time authentication request for our MailChimp account. Okay. I feel like I'm very far away from everything now. Okay. All right. Any comment online? Not seeing it. All right. So we've approved that. And then the third rather, bullet point, the Central Park Classic mini golf tournament. Mark, would you like to speak to this? Because this was a request for just covering some upfront costs within the collaboration with Central Park Business Association. But yes, I think you wanted.
Is Matt in the? Is Matt there?
Matt's in person. Matt's in the room.
Yeah, Matt, we don't need to do this anymore, right? Because of what we discussed last week.
Okay.
I didn't hear that clearly.
The upfront costs covered just through CPBA, I guess, has a little more flexibility in doing that. So
okay.
So we don't have to go into the particulars now, but I think we can meet whatever initial outlays we need to do.
Okay, that was great. Thank you.
The one thing we do need though is I think our process now requires I don't know if it's board notification or a vote authorizing us to be involved in this event. It's basically the same thing we did as last year, the Central Park Classic is mini golf tournament at Flight Go Tower. It'll be on Sunday, May 19th from noon to 6 p.m. Our rules now or our guidelines now require at the very least notification of the board and authorization for any expenses that we would incur. We're keeping the ticket prices the same, but we are making up some changes to increase the capacity so that if we're able to recruit more community members to come, we'll have up to, I think, 400 mini golfers this time. And then we're also going to reconfigure some of the layout, but for the most part, it'll flow pretty similarly to what we did last year, which was approved. So I think we do need to make sure that the board knows we're doing this, and we want to be able to start selling tickets soon. So this is essentially the last chance for any concerns to be raised, et cetera, before we start moving forward.
Can you recap whether the event pays for itself or whether it's revenue generating?
The event last year raised over $1,300 for CPUN, so it more than paid for itself. And then CPBA had sponsorship packages as well. We were going to reconfigure some of that this year as well, so that we'll be doing essentially having the event pay for itself in its entirety, and then potentially splitting the proceeds between the two organizations and settling up at the end, because we're going to do some joint sponsorship packages as well, so that you'll depending on which sponsorship level you do, you'll get into our email list as well, or emails.
And so is this something that we need to vote on then, or just
sounds like voting on doing it, and that we will eventually maybe have to reimburse, but we'll get reimbursed on top of that.
The expectation is that it'll bring in more money than it costs.
Okay, but Mark, the vote that's being requested is that like we're okay to move forward with it?
Correct.
my
We're good to move forward.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, seconded, all right, I think we're all approved here. Okay, online also, not seeing anything. All right, you're good, Mark. Do you need volunteers to help with it, or is it more of day of volunteers?
We'll need some day of volunteers, but Matt will, I think we'll probably come back with more volunteer, opportunities, we'll call them, later, but I don't think we have anything.
Okay.
I don't have anything in my mind at the moment.
Yeah, we're gonna have a few more kids activities, so it'll be helpful to have folks to help monitor that and make sure everybody has a good time, but and so we'll need a few volunteers and then to help set up and strike the tents, whatever else we set up on the day of. So before and after especially.
Okay,
So we get more specific about what the
Okay.
schedule will be like as it gets closer.
okay, and I'll follow up with you separately also just to see about, because I don't think there was was there a CPUN table, or a CBPA kind of like tabling, like just to let us know?
We
organizations?
didn't do a lot of just like general information giving out, but that's a good idea. Like if there are
seems like-
folks that want to volunteer to help with that, and spread the word about what's going on around the neighborhood, what's coming up for CPUN, we definitely can do that. So, but we're planning on utilizing more. Did you go last year?
Yeah, I do.
The west side of the building to have more of the business tents and kind of milling around set up over there.
Okay.
So the check-in will be on that side too, so it won't be right there by the back door.
Well, that's great. Well, keep
and it's-
us posted.
May 19th, did we get that done?
All right, I think we're good on that. And so now just the final one, I know Amanda, you had wanted to talk a little bit about this, just the Zoom license issues. And so previously we had been using the free city license, but have, all of you have seen when we've run into problems with that, and it's not something that we can control who's logging in first. And so among the executive committee, we've been talking about getting our own Zoom license. And we can do, the plans are basically $160 a year at full price for 100 attendees, $270 a year for up to 300 attendees for the license. Or Mark found TechSoup for an admin fee of $18, 50% of those costs. And so I don't know if you want to start, Amanda, on any of concerns you might have, and then Mark, I guess I'm just curious about the pros and cons of having it administered through TechSoup.
So my cons for this are just that we are a large, well-resourced neighborhood, and if this seems like a resource that the city should be providing, we should advocate for the city to do a better job of providing it so that it's there for all of the RNOs to use. I mean, I guess the counter to that is should we just step out of the way so that there are more resources available for smaller RNOs? I don't know, but it just seems like being oh, this system isn't working for us, so we're just going to go and do our own thing isn't optimal. We should work with the city to improve resources for RNOs because they were so close to actually getting it right. And so why should neighborhoods then be shouldered with that expense? Because historically they were, providing rooms for us to meet. It's the city wants to facilitate an RNO network, so they should give us something. That's my con argument.
So I will second your rebuttal of yourself, Amanda, and say that and add on to if we pay for our own, then the city can make the shall we say less financially endowed parts of the community or residents not have as much conflict out there. And it sounds like the city's cutting its budget wherever they can anyways. So I don't think this is really the time to be asking the city to pay extra for anything. And clearly it hasn't been working for us.
All right. There's a lot of other things that we could be fighting about with the city. I don't think the Zoom license is really top priority. I mean, it's like, it's nothing.
Yeah.
I get it. I agree with her, but also there's so many other things that we want the city to do besides that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree also with Mark is that if we can buy our own license, then it frees up space for the other, I mean, for example, the East Colfax RNO meets at the exact day and time as us. The Northeast Park Hill, and are kind of like other communities like right next to us, like use it at the same time. So it does free up the license for those two organizations to be using it. So any other thoughts on this?
I move that we spend the money on. Oh, I guess you asked about, but the other thing too, like, should we use this other service?
Yeah, I guess yeah, Mark, if you just wanted to speak
Yeah.
to the tech soup of it all.
TechSoup is a nonprofit created to help facilitate getting the various tech companies being able to offer discounts to other nonprofits. So basically, it's just a facilitator, but the way they fund their organization and is through small administrative fees. So again, we get half off our. It's not some weird internet scam. It's like a very legit thing where we had to like verify with TechSoup once that we're a legit 501c3, and it saves all of the other tech companies that you can get deals from having to like go through that process themselves. So it's just a facilitating organization.
That sounds good to me.
That does. Is it a one-time fee or is it an annual fee of $18, Mark?
I think it's an annual fee of $18, but I'm not 100% sure.
What else do you get with that $18? Like, do you get discounts on other technology as well?
Well, we signed up for the organization for, I forget what else, for some other discount for something we were using in the past for another discount. The $18 is very explicitly just for this specific deal, which is why it's only $18. But most of the other discounts that they have come with their own small admin fees as well.
That sounds good.
It sounds, yeah. And I guess if we're looking at the TechSoup numbers, then do people care if it's up to 100 attendees or up to? I would just say the only thing I would say is when we have candidate forums, or I think even our December meeting, we had more than 100 people actually on the Zoom at that point. So we can go up to the 300 for 100, yeah, $153 to at least be able to have that capacity when we have those kinds of events. I would be in favor of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess I'll motion to approve $152.95 annually for CPUN Zoom license. Okay. All right. Not seeing any objections online, not seeing any objections in the room. All right, so it passes, and we've gotten through the budget requests.
Before we move on,
Sure.
there was actually something that I don't see on the budget, which is a accessibility plugin for our website. We had talked about, do you remember talking about that? Yeah, and so right now we have a website that was just recently rebuilt, and the designer of the website told us about a feature that allows accessibility, and it's a plugin, and that plugin would cost us $490 a year to maintain, and then $100 for her to be able to add it to the website. And so as we're discussing this, I didn't see it up there. So is that something we need to do later, or?
I'm wondering if would it be possible, because I remember we talked about it during like an outreach and communications meeting. I was probably the January one, and then I promptly forgot about it. So would it be possible to get just kind of, I think, a narrative, like basically in writing, like what the plugin is, what the initial cost is, and also like what are the accessibility features, and just kind of find out all of that information, and then I think it's something that we could like vote on in our March meeting if that works for folks. Okay, all right. And so I think we can move on to the board process. This is just a reminder for folks. The CPUN board gets voted on as a slate at our May annual forum. So right now we're in kind of board recruitment time. The slate has to be announced 30 days in advance. So that will be by April 21st. Board members serve for 2-year terms staggered, so that about half are up for re-election every other year. Current board members who are on this year's slate, for your term, Amanda, Jeff Barron, Chris, Trisha, Carol, Mandel, and Sandra. So for all of the folks on that list, if you can just let me know by March 1st, if you want to, stay on the board, be on the slate, like just let me know by March 1st. And then the maximum number of board members that we have in our bylaws is up to 19 members. We're at 16, so we have 3 open slots. And so that brings me to the next slide, is the board recruitment. So basically between now and April 21st, we should, be talking to folks who'd like to join the board. I would really encourage folks to think about who they could actively recruit. If there's any folks, I've already spoken with Amy Campbell, who is the chair for the Safe Streets Committee and does a lot of stuff, but anyway, and so she's considering it. But basically we have a Google form where folks can express interest and we'll, follow up. And then they'll need to provide a 200-word statement on why they'd like to join the board plus a bio, and then interview with CPUN board members, which would be a recruitment committee of board members. And then everything, ideally we get done by April 12th so that we could consider and vote as a board for who who will also fill those remaining spots for the slate. And then, so we need folks to volunteer just to serve on a recruitment committee. And then we also need people to apply if they're interested in getting involved in CPUN. And so then that brings us to the outreach discussion that I wanted to have, that we now have 7 minutes on the clock for. But basically we can just, I'll go through this slide very quickly and then we can just open it up. But based on the community survey that Mark presented on last month, and just the current makeup of our board, we're not really reaching people who rent in our neighborhood. We're not really reaching residents in the income restricted housing, both for sale and rental. Residents north of I-70, most of us on the board live south of I-70. Also in the comments on the community survey, there were people who live in the Aurora section on the kind of far east portion of the neighborhood, who said you guys don't care about those of us who live in Aurora. And it actually would be great to have, we did have a member on the DEI committee who had lived in Aurora, and that actually led to us expanding the footprint in the bylaws to include the Aurora section. So if anybody knows folks kind of in any of these, and then also just, we have historically underrepresented or historically excluded groups due to racial or ethnic identity, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And so just kind of looking at this list, if there are any folks that we can they don't necessarily have to apply for the board this year, but that we want to just kind of be more intentional about doing outreach to and finding out what is a way that folks will want to get involved with CPUN. I just want to put that on, everybody in this meeting and on this call to see what can we be doing to more intentionally have just representation and board representation from these groups. So I'll stop
Liz, I
there.
have a quick question on this.
Sure.
One of the items for CPUN that goes into the welcome bags that get delivered every other month is a little thing about joining the board with the QR code that you would put together. I wasn't sure though how often anybody's looking at the form that QR code goes to.
It is very funny. I just looked at that, so I think I have access to the Google form. You have, I think I gave you access, and I've given George, Jeff Horsfall, access last year. And actually, I'll just open it up to anybody who's on the board, but it was just a Google form. I checked it right before this meeting, and there are people who filled it out, that I then emailed and said, but the
Thank
last
you.
person who filled it out, it was in 2023. So I emailed the most recent person on there and just said, hey, are you still interested in this? So I will check it more regularly. I didn't actually know it was in the welcome backs, and hadn't been checking it, but I did check, and there are 7 responses. And some of those are people who had filled it out before. Some of them are people I hadn't seen before, so I got in touch with the person who had most recently filled it out. So, and now I'll stop talking if folks want to talk about board recruitment, why people, I guess like there's, and also just like, what does outreach look like?
Do we just do the MCA monthly, put it on the MCA monthly?
No.
I reach everybody, right?
Yeah, or it reaches all.
That's a lot.
So that's, yeah.
Seemed like they could, or they did a thing for the Central Park education.
Okay,
I mean, you really want to get it out there instead of word of mouth.
yeah.
We know who the property managers of any of these newer buildings is, that if they have like an internal email that we can have them tell their residents about.
Yeah, I mean, what I have been thinking also is just a flyer, like having a flyer and having it up in like either bulletin boards or elevator. Like when I've done flyering before for like apartment complexes, generally it's like taped in the elevator or something like that. And so that would just kind of be more like boots on the ground, just going to the complexes and asking whoever, if there's a front desk, like, can you put this up?
The flyer is a good idea. You can put that in Stanley.
Yeah, libraries and rec centers too, yeah. So,
That's easy to do.
yeah, I mean, and I'm happy, I did like some tabling materials for the DEI committee that can easily be adapted for just like, here's, have you ever heard of Central Park United Neighbors? Here's where we are when we meet, how you can learn more if you want to get involved. So I'm happy to make, or at least draft up one week. The same way that we do the outlet or the welcome bags, like just have a few volunteers. And I think that, I don't know, if Shalice, I see Shalice is on, the Zoom. I don't know if, since you're on the board for, the MCA, would you be able to get us, the addresses for all of the apartments in, like the apartment complexes in the neighborhood?
So I don't know the addresses right off the top of my head, but I know that Kevin has all of that information, including the number of units.
Okay, that would be great. If, I'll follow up by email, but if we could just get a list of the addresses, and then it would be just like the welcome back. It's just having a couple of volunteers driving around, and talking to the folks in the front desk. So that would be great.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
The buildings don't have front desks.
Yeah.
Or even like a publicly accessible space. I know from delivering welcome bags, I guess they're not apartments, they're condos just directly across from the train station across Central Park Boulevard. So that's like a multi-family housing building, but without any publicly accessible common areas.
Yeah.
Not a front desk.
Well, those, I think if they have exterior entryways, then just kind of putting the flyers at the doors would be something that you could do. Yeah, or just like, but I think actually, I'll put it in the email to you and Kevin Shalise, but just if there is, because I would assume the MCA has contact phone numbers for each of those buildings. So just calling ahead and finding out what's the best way to get this material to you, would be fine. So, okay.
Historically, how many people do you have who apply?
I don't think that it's usually only like, I think, I don't know, Amanda, you've been here much longer than I have.
What was the question?
How many people typically apply? I think we're pretty usually well balanced with like the number of seats available and the number of interests.
Always looks at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually working on this quite some time ago, as far as the, trying to reach out to the apartment complexes. I think I kind of dropped the ball on that. I had reached out to Shalise and she gave me some information, so it's something that's very important. So we need to follow up with, and I'll make sure I do that as well.
Yeah, I think we have almost 1,000 new apartments since then, or 1,000. I can't remember if it's 1,000 new completed apartments or 1,000 apartments that would be completed by the end of this year. But it's a lot more than it was last year. So I'll get the updated list from Kevin.
That would be great. And then I think that for any folks on committees, also, I think that this, like, the education committee, or just in terms of like whatever sort of outreach for things you're advocating for, I think that would be really valuable information. Yeah, I guess, on the next slide that we have, actually, it's the second to last slide, under outreach opportunities, I had just been also thinking, like, what are our communications platforms? So I feel like a big thing we have is our email list is like over 10,000 residents. I mean, it's not as big as the MCA's list, but thinking about how we use that, like, how do we build the email list, but also how do we use that email list? And so I would be in favor of, just thinking about, like, how can we make the community update emails concise, but also more robust in reporting out, like, what are we actually doing? Like, we have these committees, they meet, we often put that information out there, but then we don't follow up. Like, that's why I like what the Education and Safe Streets Committee reported back on, like, here's what we're doing. And so we want to have some of our committee report outs in that section of the community update email. And then again, tabling at community events. The Central Park Classic is like a huge opportunity. And then we have the weekly farmers markets. And I know that part of that is just hard getting folks to sign up on a Sunday morning to table. And so I will volunteer for and just put together a sign up genius. For that, but I think that there's a lot of low hanging fruit, and in just letting folks know, like, hey, we exist, and that we would like to have more community voices. Like, even though like the community hour always runs longer than an hour, I do like that there were new folks online and there were new folks in the room, and new people to hear, like, just to hear from about, like, something that really is like impacting our community and surrounding communities, surrounding neighborhoods. And so I suppose I see, like, the end goal is, like, I want our meetings and our conversations to be more representative of what people are going through. So I'll stop talking if anyone else would like to just kind of chime in on thoughts or ideas about, what we need, what we can do.
Is there a site in our site where they can go to, or an email, or, I mean, other than just generally, can we, you want to be a member of, where do we sign up to get more information?
On the website, there's to join, there's kind of like the email form, and they can indicate interest in different topics for the committee that correspond to each of the committees. And and then otherwise provide feedback. And so,
But is there something that says I want to be considered as a board
not so much.
member? It's really not hard to do. I think we should probably think about
Yeah. We've got a whole Google form waiting that those can fill out, so we can do that also. I mean,
it. I was just thinking,
people have
click
said
on
that.
it and see what,
Yeah.
rather than make it hard.
I joined specifically because I wanted to do the education.
Yeah.
It's very purposeful, right? So I think some of the committees, I still don't know what some of them do. I'm super confused on safety and health or health and safety. I don't know what that does. So it would be probably beneficial to understand a little bit better what each of them, what is the end goal?
Yeah.
Like the education one's pretty easy because it's like to be the biggest pain in the ass to DPS as possible, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're trying to do. And so like, what are some of the goals of some of the other?
So DEI, we have a whole mission statement.
Right.
Right.
So like, I think it just would be helpful for some of these people who want to join. What are these individual things doing? Like, what is their goal?
Yeah.
So do you mean that should be posted online, or are you saying updated?
For sure. I mean, if you're interested in joining CPUN, and you want to, yes, these meetings are great, but if you want to purposely be involved in a committee, you need to know what that committee is, right? I know of it, but what's the end goal? What are you trying to do? Like, how are you trying to move the needle, right?
Well, I think that what I hear from you also though, is that I think this came up in some of the conversations, one-on-one conversations I've had with folks, is actually having a more a more detailed discussion among ourselves during these community meetings once a month, because we meet and we all have limited time. And so actually having folks, like, instead of having a guest speaker one month, having like Safe Streets or education, just kind of have that time to talk about, like, here's when we meet, here's what our purpose is, here's what we're doing. And just so that all of that information is being shared by the board at large, instead of being siloed into just the committee slots if you can meet. Yeah, I mean, on a particular Tuesday. So I hear you. I think that that's actually part of what I would like to do in the agenda building for these monthly meetings too, is just to like shine a spotlight on the committees so that everybody knows what's going on and knows how to get involved.
Yeah.
Is that so?
So the reason I asked about whether or not you wanted them posted on the website, as we revamp the website, there is a section for all the committees and there is the mission for each committee. And so some of them are more in depth than the others, but there is definitely that online presence there. So I think if you are on a committee and you haven't seen the website, you need to take a look at it and see if it's properly addressed as to what your committee does, and we can update it to make those changes.
I mean, the new people coming in to be involved, and they want to come in and do something, right? So they just need to know what is everyone doing that they can, put their teeth into to do.
Yeah. Well, hold on, let me just see. There is there is the committee section on the website. So yeah, and there is join a committee is one of the buttons on that page. Oh, I guess our time. Oh, no, oh, you're going on Central Park Neighbors. So join a committee. So there are sections underneath Trisha, like purpose, meetings, committee members. So all of that is on the website. I mean, I think that since it is nested under the about section, it could do with we can highlight that either in the community email or on the front page. but also, but I mean, I think a lot of that information is there. And also some of it could stand to be updated. So yeah, for folks on those committees, we can do a little refreshing. And it is, I just want to, we are more than 10 minutes over. It's 8:41. But I did want to have this conversation. So, so thank you everybody for staying here. I guess, is there anything right now, and anything else that has not come up during this meeting that folks want to address, or that we can at least kind of table for next month's meeting or by email?
So the development people next week or next month.
Next month, yeah.
Are we gonna have more? I really think that the community at large really needs to, I mean, there's a lot of questions about all of these apartments and like what's going on. Is there a way we can really like get more requests for questions?
I think that's a great
community feedback, because there's a lot that they need to hear.
So I think I noticed that you shared this meeting in different Facebook groups. So, I mean, again, like we have the basic communications platforms are the website. And so the website, the emails, and the Facebook group. I think I can do a quick Google form where folks can submit the questions specifically for that meeting, and then we can publicize it and put that in the email, on the website, and in the Facebook posts. I think that nobody looks at our Facebook page, except for very few people do, but I do think like sharing it out in the groups where folks that have more traffic is really effective. And so if we want to just collect questions from folks, that's easy. It's like throwing up a form for that, so we can have that ready.
Also be anything that we can get from field in advance, like
yes,
talk about these complexes, they have these numbers of units. I mean, I know they kind of like rattle through that very quickly at the beginning, but just anything that they're willing to sort of disclose that we can share to help publicize the meeting, but also help inform people in crafting their questions.
Well, I'm planning on meeting, checking in with Kelly at Brookfield the first week in March, which is coming up very soon. So I think I can do that form, and I think actually just around this table, like if you all have questions, like I'll send you the link, start submitting them, and then you can, just come prepared, like let them know, like come prepared on X, Y, and Z topics, or to answer these questions.
Sort of skimmed over the traffic a lot.
Yeah.
Like there was 2 or 3 questions that were asked specifically about how do you plan on facilitating the traffic because of where you're putting some of these locations. And it was very much like, well, we're just waiting for the engineer's report.
Yeah.
Very like skimmed over. And I mean, that's going to be a massive issue because there's close to 1,000 apartments coming in right on 35th and Central Park.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a massive issue. So having her understand that she needs to actually answer it would be fabulous.
So let me just respond to that. That is not something that the developer can really answer. So there's 2 parts to that. PCMD, or Park Creek Metro District, is responsible for building out the infrastructure, but everything is approved through the city. And so in terms of widening the streets, adding more stoplights, adding more stop signs, again, that is through the council person, the city, and they will not do anything without an engineer's report. And it's based off of federal guidelines.